Sidebar video as folks come in. So welcome everybody. I'm gonna play a little video while folks are entering into. Oh, did I miss it? Where did it go? Okay. Sidebar. I had it up. Okay, let's see. It might be here. It's not this one.
I wasn't
One second, everyone. Okay. Videos. Oh, here it is. Okay, there we go.
If I have to describe Sidebar to a colleague, I'll tell them that this is a radically inclusive, peer-driven network of great perspectives.
There's a lot of strategy behind how this works.
It's like your own personal board of directors.
The expertise that I'm able to sort of tap into is second to none.
You have things that you bring to the table that other people need, and they have things that they can give you perspectives on.
Even on my busiest days, I will drop what I'm doing to join Sidebar because I know it's going to be a great group of people, great facilitation, and we're all going to walk away as better leaders.
There are facilitators that manages everybody's time, but at the same time, it's extremely inclusive in terms of the perspective of the people.
The best thing about Sidebar is just knowing like the problems that I have are not unique to me.
Having that sanity check and that peace of mind is really helpful.
There was no outlet for that specific type of vulnerability as it pertains to my professional growth that I'd had ever before Sidebar.
I give Sidebar a lot of credit for this. What I've learned since is that engagement is part of the secret sauce.
Great people, great structure, great process.
I can tell you that it was the best investment of my time, and I look forward to.
I always come out of it feeling great.
Recording in progress.
Throw out the paradigm of work-life balance.
Okay. Oh, let me.
I would say.
Okay. Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. For those of you who might not know me, my name is Ha Nguyen, and I am Sidebar's chief evangelist. I have been with Sidebar for a year, both as a member and working alongside the team, and excited to host this member panel this morning. So let me go ahead and let's go ahead and spotlight Max and Akshaya and Ida, who are also founding members of Sidebar. And I'm going to just throw out the first question to, well, I guess, Max, you're the oldest tenured member of Sidebar. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Max, and then also why you joined Sidebar.
Sure. I did not know that statistic. I feel privileged to be.
At least in the panel, you're the most tenured member.
Oh, okay, good. that makes a little more sense. Yeah, nice to meet you all. Happy to be here today. I'm Max. I born and raised in Seattle, had a career in management consulting, and then a 10-year stint at Nike. And most recently, last year, I joined the Instacart team to stand up their corporate strategy function. So during this whole time at Instacart, I've actually been with, and a little bit into Nike, I've been with Sidebar, and that's kind of the precipice for why I joined. My sort of Sidebar journey is that I had just hit 10 years at Nike. I was in Amsterdam leading their Nike.com and Nike app business. And my journey with Nike had been incredible up to that point, but I was noticing maybe my learning curve was flattening. And at the same time, I was trying to envision the next like 5 to 10 years at the brand and what that would look like. And I realized the only people I had talked about with this, that I had talked with about this stuff were like my family and my friends, who actually happened to overlap a lot with Nike because I'd been there for so long. So I realized, that it might be good to get some other perspectives on what I should do with my career and to guide me through what was next. So I came to Sidebar, and yeah, I'll leave that cliffhanger to tell you more about my Sidebar journey, but they really helped me pick my head up and think about the next stage in my career and guide me through this transition. So that's me. That's my story. Am I popcorning to the other members?
Yeah, well, let's popcorn to Ida. So Ida, is a product leader in my network, and I spoke to Ida last summer and somehow convinced her to join Sidebar instead of Chief. So Ida, introduce yourself and tell us how you joined.
So similar to Max, I'm kind of I feel like I'm in a perpetual career transition. I started my career in UX, moved to product management, went into data strategy, went into international product, and then got recruited as CIO, like went way into tech at Eurasia Group and led a digital transformation there for 5 years. And decided I really wanted to go back to product. And I felt a little bit disconnected from the product community. I've joined the CTO Club of Manhattan, which is an incredible network of people. And we've got, small cohorts in there, but I needed something different. And I've been talking to executive coaches, and I've been talking to mentors, and I've tried a couple of different platforms, but the way that you and I discussed the board, the personal board, right, of directors, it's I had a bunch of mentors, right, but I never got to bring them together to help me come up with a good strategy. And I don't feel like I can reach out to those people more than a couple times a year. And so that's what I was looking for. I was looking for a cohort that would understand what I want to be in, which is product marketing and, some technology. And that happens to be the cohort that Akshaya and I are in. And so that's why, that's what I was looking for. And that's how I got set up in Sidebar, which is a huge reason why it's been so meaningful for me.
Yeah, and we're so happy to have you, Ida. Okay, Akshaya, and this is fun because you and Ida are both in the same group. So tell us why you joined and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Lovely to meet you all. A little bit of my background and story is I've been in product management even before product management was a thing. So that was literally the only thing I ever did all my life. I stepped into it about 18 years ago, started my life at Microsoft as a developer, moved to Expedia, worked there for a very long period of time, built their mobile apps ground up, and then moved to Remitly for a little bit. And then I moved to Canada and worked at Shopify for a bunch of time. And then I took a lovely little break. And Sidebar and the introduction to Sidebar came just as I was wrapping up that break and I was going through this transition in my life is, yes, I can go be a product leader again somewhere after that 10-month break, which was incredible, by the way, highly recommend it. But then also as I was stepping into this new world, I stepped into venture and I do product management at venture studios right now, and in a very interesting venture studio model. So the timing was excellent where I wanted to make sure that I build up my think tank, and that was really what I was looking for. And then when Hal was talking to me about the personal board, I was like, maybe I can fit my value and make this board of directors my think tank is really what really encouraged me to go try this. And here's one part of my think tank right here. Ida's part of my group. And so that's really what motivated me to join that, right? And I was, can I get a different perspective, global perspective, not just a product management perspective, but really think about go to market, think about operational side. I do tend to build a lot in regulated businesses right now, which is not experience I've had in the past. So I was like, excellent, I'm going to go and tap into this amazing think tank of humans. But I'll tell you a little bit more about what I also got out of it, which is my cliffhanger on this. But that's how I got introduced to Sidebar. And where I've been.
You can't leave us hanging, so you got to go. You got to tell us. Yeah.
I found this incredible group of humans that I can't wait to talk to every 2 weeks, which is a whole different story. And Ida knows this. We also catch up on wine evenings and things like that virtually. So, yes, I got my think tank. I have my board of directors, but most importantly, I have found this group of humans that I'm so deeply connected to, even though we've never met in person. So that's something.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I love that. I also have a COO GM group, and I really do feel like some of them are like friends that I would do anything for. Like the moment that they reach out, I'm on a call. I pick up that phone right away and support them in however they need help. So thank you so much for sharing. So I know that there's a lot of people in this call and they want to know like what the Sidebar experience is like. So tell us a little bit about like, what is it? Like, so you're meeting with people and what do you do with them? And so, I don't know, I'll go back to you, Max, since you have been with Sidebar for more than a year. Tell us a little bit about the experience, what that's like.
Yeah. So I mean, in the early days, I recall, you're meeting your group, you're sharing a little bit about each other, and you've gotten, a really professional expert facilitator to kind of guide you through all of this, which I think is such a critical part of the experience. The facilitators at Sidebar are top tier, and they really know how to get the most out of the group and also just understand like where the group is in their journey. At the beginning, it's like, 5, 6, 7 strangers, and the way that they're able to break the ice like very effectively and quickly in order for people to open up. And there's a lot of great prompts for that. I think that's really critical, and that really helped our group because we had like real important things to talk about from day one. But doing that with a group that you've just met is very difficult. So I think that the facilitators are really experts in that. And I think what stood out to me in the early days is just how quickly, again, a group of almost strangers was able to intently listen to each other and understand where each person was in their own journey, and then their ability to provide feedback and actually kind of guidance. I just remember being taken aback, or having been taken back by just how much they cared from the very beginning. So yeah, I was describing my situation at Nike and kind of all the things I was thinking through. And yeah, I just had not been connected with a group of peers at that level with such refreshing points of view and different experiences than me. So that really stood out. But the other thing I was surprised at is how much I enjoyed listening to other people, the things that other people were going through, and how much satisfaction and growth I got out of helping the rest of the team. So, some days you don't have, anything top of mind or something burning, but somebody else in your group does. And I look forward to those days and really helping them just as much as I do, getting feedback and guidance from what's going on in my life. So those are just a few things that I noticed about the early journey and just the power of the facilitators, along with, just the incredible talent that's at Sidebar.
Yeah, thank you, Max, for sharing. I would say that like the nice thing about the Sidebar groups is that everybody's in it for the same reason, which is they want to invest in their professional growth, and they want to be surrounded by a supportive group and community to help them achieve their best work. So, Ida, anything to add to what Max said?
Yeah, everything Max just said is true in our group as well. We really quickly bonded and created our little like wine mom subgroup with me and Akshaya and Emily. And actually the first time we met, we were talking about parenting and like how to manage the, big goals and big career and having small kids at home and a marriage to maintain and, house and dogs and whatever else. Like just the big picture stuff is really easy to bond over. And learning the reason that I said, I love that you guys are going to take on a personal problem in this session, because the reason you're not going to leave the same way you came into this session is because when you hear somebody else's problem and you're like, I know the answer, I know the answer, I know the answer, right? You get some training from Sidebar about how to quiet that voice that won't shut up, right? Because especially for like exec level people who just know the answer to everything. You get trained in how to coach. So I've gotten so much training from our expert facilitator in how to listen and how to coach without, Akshaya and I laughed last time about coaching with leading questions. Like, how many times have you booked this slot on your calendar for, right? Like that's a leading question. So learning about coaching and understanding what's at the heart of some of the challenges that our cohort members face, and then learning from that for ourselves. The other thing for me is because we're meeting every 2 weeks, there's no hiding, right? Like when I don't share a challenge in a given week and we're all contributing to 1 or 2 people, it's illuminating, but then the next time I have to share. And it was really poignant last week as I was getting ready for a really difficult conversation and I wasn't going to share, but then I did. And I was way better prepared for the difficult conversation that I was going to have like half an hour later. So there's super tactical, meaningful benefit right in the moment of every 2 weeks. And then there's this like, oh, how am I going to manage my life as my kids grow to eventually go to college, right? It's everything. So I love that.
So fun story. Yesterday, I hosted my monthly breakfast club and I was applying Sidebar's methodology and like learning and development best practice principles around facilitation and coaching and advising to the group. And it really made a big difference. So we will stay on for the last 20 minutes because we are going to take a panel through a problem-solving exercise. You can see Sidebar's structured approach to facilitation in action. Okay, Akshaya, I know you're dying to like hop on and share some of your experiences.
Oh my God, I was like 100%. I'm not going to repeat whatever. I mean, Ida's basically said everything what I wanted to say, but I think the piece that I will really, really lean in on is one, the accountability piece, right? Like, because I think it's very easy to like set goals and targets, say the professional and personal, and then like somehow you just kind of, you feel alone with it. And, or there's someone else trying to change that for whatever reason there is, either professionally or personally, you're trying to deal with so many things. Just the accountability of showing up to your group and this trusted set of people to say, I didn't do this. And people don't just leave it at it, right? They're like, what do you need to get it done? And so that conversation really becomes a lot more action oriented, which again, like I know we always bias to that, but like the work takes over or other things take over, and like what you really want to achieve kind of lets like you put yourself last almost. And I love that in these every 2 weeks, you have to put yourself first, and it's like dedicated amount of time to have accountability and conversations on that, just so you overall can step back and feel the progress, right? Because it's so easy to get into the day-to-day. And I like, listen, like I know everyone said facilitators, but this part is the most important thing, because like, I mean, it's the bond that you create with each other, but also the fact that you stay on track and get the value of what you need to get done in that session, right? Because of course you can sit and chit chat about whatever you want for a couple hours and then it goes away. But I do love just the natural human way that the facilitation gets you to what you need to achieve in the session, which is really cannot be like understated. It's super valuable.
Thank you so much for sharing, Akshaya. I'm going to throw out the next session with, the next question, which you started to touch upon, but I really want to hear it from everybody. So Sidebar is an investment, right? So, it's an investment in ourselves and our professional development. Can you help us quantify the return on that investment? So like, is it worth it to pay this membership fee? Like, can I really learn from my peers? Like, can you give some concrete stories, and Max, we'll start back with you. Concrete stories of like, how has Sidebar helped you unlock your best work or grow as a professional, or what's the return on investment here that I can expect if I were to join?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to look at this ROI, right? There's things that you'll keep with you your whole life in terms of skills, frameworks, ways of thinking about things, ways of engaging your teammates or your manager or whatnot. And those are a lot of like maybe some of the soft skills that I think you do refine through the Sidebar experience. But I mean, just going back to my experience, I was going through a career transition. I mean, career transitions can have an impact on the rest of your life, your trajectory professionally, financially, all of those things. So in the scope of a career change and making the right decision, I think it's an easy ROI if that group helps you make the right decision for you and helps you land that job that you want and you aspire to. So that was the case for me. I mean, I basically had my sort of search through landing the new role process was like 8 months. And so, so when you think about that, I spent most of the year going through that process with my group. And it was everything from, okay, what type of company should I go to next, right? Do I want to lean more into tech or more into apparel and footwear, like my sweet spot? Should I lean into my strategy skills and competency and go down that path, or should I lean into more e-commerce, and what would that path look like? So all of this was a part of the challenges and questions that I brought to my group, and my group was exceptional at just helping me think about the different opportunities and the different pros and cons. We actually coined our own framework just through talking about this, and I'll share it with this group. We talked about how there's, in different stages in your career, there's a time where you need to be earning. There's a time where sometimes you're burning, like you're burning like high intensity, and there's a time where you should be learning. And we talked about the intersection of these things. Yeah, earn, burn, learn, copyright, manatees group, sidebar. You guys can all use that in your own lives. But we talked about it's really hard to do all three, and actually you shouldn't be doing all three. And we talked about how there's different times to lean into each. And so that was a lens through which, the group helped me think about, how high of a priority is earning versus learning. And am I ready? Do I have the energy to take on a really, really intense new role? That's the burning piece. So just sharing a little bit about that experience. But yeah, the ROI was huge because I landed the role that I wanted. They helped me think about negotiation because I hadn't done that outside of Nike for a while. And so pretty high ROI for me in my first year.
And you were working with the most amazing CEO, my friend Fiji Simo, at Instacart. But I love that you mentioned about your Sidebar group being instrumental in helping you think through like career and what's next, because there's a lot of folks who are on this call who are probably in career transitions, wondering, is it worth joining now versus, joining when I land something? And I think what you just said, Max, is that it's critical, to join now so that your group can not only be supportive and make sure that you're asking yourself the right questions, but also can help you just be introspective and think deeply and allow you to make the right choice. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that resonated with a lot of people in this audience. Okay, Ida.
That Max's share resonated with me too. And the way that you just bottom lined it, I think of VCs investing in startups. Like, what do you get from that? You get the chance to really fast find out if this is going to work or not. And I feel like that's the investment in Sidebar. Like, I don't have to noodle on something for a year. I get an answer every 2 weeks. So for me, I think about it in terms of opportunity cost. Like I'm in my mid 40s now. Time is so precious to me. I have another probably 20 years of a decent career impact, and that doesn't feel like a lot. And so I can't wait around for big decisions. And to have a group that got to know me in the first meeting, and I think we're halfway through our year, Akshaya. In our last meeting, I was crying with 2 of my other cohorts because we were talking about a really deep family issue. And it wasn't my family issue. It was somebody else's, but we get to know each other at such a deep level that when we have a question like Max's about which way should I go, they already know you. And it's like, and I actually did this last week. Nick was debating about something, and I was chosen of our group to kind of bottom line his summary. And I was like, Nick, I'm just going to read you this quote that you just said. That's your answer. And he was like, yeah, you're right. Like that is the time saved, and the decisiveness that you get from the brain trust outside of yourself is hugely valuable.
Thank you, Ida. Okay, Akshaya, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay. I mean, I think about ROI in this specific situation in 2 ways, right? One is just the obvious cost it takes to actually have access to this. And then second time is and then the time and effort you need to put into it to actually get the best out of it. So let's talk about the cost bit first. I think how you quoted me in your latest LinkedIn post, which is I've had the privilege and opportunity to be associated with a lot of exec coaches in the past. And luckily or enough, I didn't have to foot the bill, but I've seen that bill, and it's a lot. It's yearly, and you get insane amount of value from it, right? Absolutely, no doubt. But it's like a one-on-one relationship for sure. In this case, I'm just wait, I can do this much faster. It's all organized for me. I don't have to spend the time and effort to like make sure it's on track and this and that, versus like all of the coordination administrative piece is like a huge load off my back, right? I don't want to add one more thing to my list to like get the value out of it. So that's the cost aspect. I love comparing it in that way, because like for me, it's not just the access to coaching or advice or skills or frameworks, but it's also the humans, right? Like it's just like exponential value. The other aspect in cost from my angle is the amount of effort and time that I have to put into it, right? Like what do I get back in terms of value? And I was hesitant. Like when I first looked at it, I was like, wow, every 2 weeks, 1.5 hours, I have to figure out my schedule. Are my meetings going to conflict? Like so many things to like organize around. But then once we landed on it, I was like, I just like realized, I was like, if I cannot spend an hour and a half every couple weeks to invest in myself, then how am I expecting to grow? Like, how am I expecting to get the value out of it? So I do believe it's a little bit of, well, if you don't invest time and effort in it, then guess what? It's not going to come for free. You got to kind of reap it back. So that's the 2 ways I've looked at it, and it's been like hugely valuable from my perspective.
Thanks, Akshaya. I actually wanted to read out something in the comments. Bruno left for you. Akshaya is just breaking my focus with the drums. Love that energy. Love that energy. So, okay, love that. You know, I have so many more questions, but I'm going to open it up to audience Q&A because we are on a tight schedule since we're also going to be doing problem solving exercise. So I'm going to open it up to the group. So if you have a question, why don't you raise your hand and then we'll call on you, and Chase and Lauren, maybe you can help me. And while you're thinking of questions that you can ask this group, I'm going to have Vic, if you want to unmute, Vic Agarwal, if you want to unmute and ask your question about the matching process, feel free. Otherwise, I can read off the chat. Okay, I'm going to read it off. So what did you think about Sidebar's cohort matching process? And if you felt like you wanted to join a different peer group, you know, what's that like? So it's a great question because I think I get asked that question a lot, like, how does the matching work? How can I be sure that I'm in a group that's high quality enough? So who wants to take that one?
I can take that one.
Oh,
yeah. We're probably going to say the same thing.
We're probably going to say the same thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was really nervous about this too. So when I was working with Sidebar on the kind of people that I wanted to learn from is kind of how I knew what to ask for. And then I was assured that if I felt like there wasn't a good fit, that there would be an opportunity for a rematch. And I absolutely would never ask for that. You know, after the first meeting, I was like, oh yeah, this is my home. So it took a while though, and I appreciated the time and the dedication to really finding that right match, because the group needs the right amount of diversity and expertise and cohort level, right? That matches what you're in and what you're after. So, and I don't think without that dedication and that really powerful matching process, I just wouldn't be getting the value that I'm getting. So to me, it's amazing.
And then Max, you've been at Sidebar for over a year. Did you are you still with the same group, or have you gotten rematched, and what's that process like?
Yeah, we're just going through that. So we had enough. We were a group for a year, and you know, the entire group except for one went through some sort of career change. So we all got to help each other kind of go through all this career change. We were all, you know, in that same boat. And again, that's part of the Sidebar matching to find people that are at a similar stage or thinking about similar enough, you know, questions as it relates to professional development. But we just sort of disbanded our group naturally, and we're all seeking, or a few of us are seeking a different group for the new challenges and aspirations that we each have. But like, the connectivity continues outside of that, and again, you have access to those members outside of your core group. But yeah, it's good to. I also think part of the benefit is getting a diverse set of perspectives and finding people that are in the in the same boat. And I just saw like a question, I think it was from Alex, about just like the level of leadership that we have in Sidebar and people at different stages. I think that's part of the matching magic as well, is that you're going to try to be placed and matched with people at similar levels, and there's not like the curriculum isn't pointed towards one level of leader or another, and that's what it's really agnostic of that. Of course, they'll bring in curriculum or points of view that relate to your level if needed, but I think it's more about the process, and the process is agnostic of that. So just wanted to make that point and knock off another question while we're at it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think the only other thing I'll add is like, because the matching process is so intentional for the entire cohort, the reason why it also works is also one-on-one connections outside of your cohort conversations, right? Like Ida and I have had one-on-one conversations many times. I'm always reaching out to Nick one-on-one because he's like is operational in revenue and like a specific business that I want to learn a lot about. So like it just also works one-on-one, and as long as you're able to spend the time and energy, you get the value out of it. So I think that's the important aspect of that matching process that makes sense both in a group as well as different one-on-one connections. Or back to our previous point, even three-on-one conversations where we do this wine moms club thing, me, Ida, and Emily.
And I'll add that if you join Sidebar, you're part of a 700 member community of leaders and execs. And there are a lot of one-on-one conversations that happen outside of groups because there's the community directory. So anybody that you might be looking for in a certain industry or field or level or function, you'll be able to find them on Sidebar. And a lot of folks do reach out, and it's a community that you're part of that's all about sort of giving and sharing and being helpful. And so when you reach out, people will respond for sure. Okay, I'm going to take questions from the audience. So I see, well, Juhi, you've had your hand up for a while, so let's take a couple of questions from the audience.
Awesome, thank you. And Akshaya, I am a drummer too, so very exciting to see another woman drummer. So question is, how does it feel like to be in the session? You have a lot of voices, I'm sure, because everyone's trying to share their experience and be helpful. Does it get like, I'm trying to understand, is it overwhelming? How do you deal with so many perspectives that are shared? And how do you sort and organize through those, right? Like supposing questions asked and everyone's sharing, what does that end up looking like?
Well, first, let me go on record and say that I'm not a drummer. These are my husband's drums. This is my husband's drums, but I'm still cool, okay? So I'm just going to go with it, and very cool for you being a woman drummer. I'm very impressed by that, Juhi. So let me just reflect back that question. You're curious to understand, like, how deep do we go into the perspectives of people in a cohort or a discussion, or is that a little bit more? Is that a little bit more around what do we do after that?
Like it's just the number of perspectives shared could be a lot, like depending on the number of cohort members, like, and could be a very diverse set of perspectives. Like, how do you get that to be something coherent and digestible?
Oh yeah, that is an excellent question. And maybe I can answer a little bit, and Ida and Max jump on in here. When we do some of that deep work, we actually kind of break out into smaller groups within the group, and then we come back, right? So I know we're like 6 or 7 in a group. We'll do maybe 3 or 4, depending on how the attendance is that day. And what that allows you to do is just like, you take the perspective, everybody gets to work through their challenges, but then you like, ultimately, like it's for your benefit. So, right. So it's really important for you to like absorb that, understand what aspects of it are still relatable to you and not, and what are you going to do about it? So it's not 7 different perspectives. It's usually a smaller number of perspectives. But also it's not just the number, it's the depth of that perspective, which I think really then comes to like, oh, I know I've been thinking about it in this different ways, but the root cause is really, that's the question I'm trying to answer, right? So I think it actually like focuses way more than gives you random diversified opinions effectively. So I think that's an important clarification there.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
some more questions. So I'm going to go with Kelly.
Hi there. So I wanted to ask a follow-up question on something, Akshaya, you shared before. How do you guys think about the relationship between sort of one-on-one executive coaching and then being a part of this group?
Okay, I can take it really, I'll take the first stab at it, and please add on if anyone else has had that. So I think exec coaching is really deep work on yourself, right? Like it's really understanding what kind of leader do you want to be, and like it's really that one-on-one perspective from that perspective. What I find valuable here is an exec coach is really, really excellent at understanding who do you want to be and how do you want to show up and what's the work you need to do. The value and the difference here is these are people also doing similar kind of jobs and like similar kind of environment. So it's a lot more tangible, I feel, which is really about like me explaining to an exec coach on how I'm trying to do digital transformation, move from legacy technology into like this, like how do I navigate engineering and UX teams through that is like such a hard conversation to have, but I can just like get to Ida as like, these are the 3 big challenges UX wise. This is what I'm challenged from an engineering leadership perspective. They just get it. Like they just get it because they live and breathe it every day. So that in my mind is like the biggest, just understanding the context without going too deep in like, what does it mean to be a legacy technology, right? Like that's, anyway, I will move on and I'd love anyone else to add on to this.
I'm going to keep moving on with more questions because a lot of hands, and then we have to wrap up in 4 or 5 minutes to move to problem solving session. So Zubair, if you're bold enough to go on camera and ask your question, if not, feel free to just unmute.
Sorry, I'm actually in the car right now, so I was hoping to stay off camera if that's all right.
No worries. Go for it.
But I'm bold enough to say what was going on, so I hope that counts. My question is actually a 2-part. The first part is that first of all, I want to thank you all for sharing your time. That this is all of this has been super valuable to me as an IC that's like growing as a senior in the corporate world. And I guess like my thought process here is a little challenging because while I see like a lot of individual contributor growth opportunity with having people at the same level as me, I also see a lot of value in being around leaders and thought leaders in the industry for more than just networking, just like being able to talk to them, being able to understand like the way they approach problems, for example, gives me a lot of insight in how I can approach problems in my life. And I wonder, like, how is it that this program and this sort of proposition allows like for inequitable or equitable, like, I guess, like experiences for all users?
I can talk to that a bit, at least. Because we have access to the entire Sidebar community, I've had several conversations with people who are interested in what I do or what I've done. And they reach out and they say, hey, can we have a conversation? And that's part of what I get from Sidebar is that opportunity as a leader to mentor others. And I really appreciate that as an opportunity. It's not, I don't do it because I have to. Nobody has to at Sidebar, but that communal commitment to each other. And I mean, every time I have a conversation with somebody at Sidebar, I gain something. It doesn't matter what level I'm speaking to. My cohort is useful for me to have those, we have industrial organizational conversations at the highest level, and I need that level of understanding to talk to in my cohort, for example. But if I need specific marketing help in climate tech, which is what I'm in right now, and it's new to me, I can go to the whole community and I can talk to anybody at any level in marketing, in product, in tech, and I use that. So that's a huge benefit of being a Sidebar member.
Thank you, Ida. Okay, we're gonna go to Cassie. This is gonna be the last question. But just so you know, there will be Sidebar folks who will stay on to answer any more questions that you might have. So please continue to stay with us longer. Cassie, hi, good to see you.
Hey, hi, good to see you too. This actually segues nicely because Ida, my question was for you. You'd mentioned that you had mentors, and I think that mentors that are at a level you're trying to get to like create that expansive understanding and the path that they've taken is different than having peer coaching. And so I was just curious for you how you're integrating that into your own kind of board of directors. Like you have Sidebar, but then how does mentorship for you factor into your equation?
As a mentor or as I maintain mentor relationships outside of Sidebar?
for mentors for you?
Mentors, so my mentors never went away. And I still do reach out to them probably at the same cadence that I used to. I've probably learned more about myself in the last 6 months, so I'm asking slightly different questions, probably more insightful. And I know better now because we've been trained in this, how to bottom line. And even on the other side of that, when I'm mentoring others, I know better how to coach. And I use some of the Sidebar tools that I honestly, I keep the coaching questions on my screen all the time because they're so useful as a training mechanism for me to use all the time. So in both directions, I still have mentorship and mentee relationships that I love to maintain. And yes, that takes effort. It's a different value proposition than my personal board of directors. And I approach those meetings differently too.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Ida. Okay, but unfortunately, we're going to wrap up this portion to move into problem solving. But first of all, want to thank you, Max, Ida, Akshaya, for joining us today. I am so impressed with all three of you. But I'll tell you that this is not necessarily the most impressive group of folks. Everybody in the 700 member Sidebar community is so impressive. I would be on a board of directors with just any of them. For sure, I know some of you are asking about the quality of the membership base, super high. Hopefully we can have many of you join us. We're matching February groups now. And so there are some Sidebar folks who are on the call who would love to stay on after the problem solving session to answer any additional questions that you might have that our panelists didn't immediately wasn't able to answer given the time constraints. We'd love to get you signed up for these February groups. We hope to welcome you into the community very soon. Okay, so with that, I'm going to introduce Chase, who is one of our most amazing facilitators at Sidebar, although all of the facilitators are so amazing. Chase happens to be the facilitator of my COO GM group, and he's going to walk us through a typical drop-in problem solving exercise within Sidebar. We have identified a few folks who in advance who will be kind of the participants in this problem solving exercise. So Chase, why don't you tee us off while I spotlight the folks who will be part of the problem solving exercise. Everybody else can listen in Clubhouse style. So take it away, Chase.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ha. I will, while you get all that sorted out, I will kick us off. As Ha mentioned, my name's Chase, and I am a facilitator here at Sidebar. I'm really excited about embarking on this experience with you all. You know, our mission here at Sidebar is really to connect extraordinary leaders, much like the amazing folks on our panel today, and catalyze your extraordinary success. You know, these sessions are really designed to allow you to connect and learn with other members of the Sidebar community while practicing core skills that are really essential to working through challenges here at Sidebar and beyond. You know, at Sidebar, we present and work through challenges we want to work through in a very specific way. The goal of this approach is to provide just enough context to the group so we can help you in a meaningful way. But, you know, a 90-minute meeting with your personal board of directors can move pretty quickly. So you heard our panelists say the word bottom lining a few times. So speaking in a concise and really effective way is one of the skills that we work on. And we're going to put that into practice with our rapid removing blockers section here with our with a few of the folks that will be spotlighting here. So I'm going to share my screen and show you how we work through challenges. Let me find the little share screen. There we go. So this is a little bit about the Sidebar process. So this is how we work through topics and challenges. It kicks off with one person sharing their challenge. In 90 seconds or less, we say, what's happening, why is it important, and how can the group support you? Then another member will restate the challenge, and we'll spend the bulk of our time asking what and how questions to both deepen our understanding of the challenge, as well as coach this member through potential solutions that they can arrive to on their own. But we need to harness the collective wisdom of the group. So we will reserve some time for suggestions, ideas, and advice. And then at the end of the removing blockers section, as we call it, the member will share their accountability. So this is what I'm going to do based on this conversation, and how can the group support you? I often like to say this is based on a quote from Albert Einstein, who said, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes asking questions and 5 minutes thinking of solutions. The coaching aspect of this process is really key to leading to these unlocks. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and thank you to our lovely participants here who will go through the sidebar process today. I believe we have Shubha Shetty here. Hi, Shubha. Shubha has a challenge that she wants to work through with our group. So Shubha, I'm going to ask that you bottom line your challenge. What's happening? Why is it important? And how can the group help?
Thank you, Chase. And thanks everyone for the opportunity, especially Ha and Chase for having me. My name is Shubha. I'm the VP of Product at Fanatics. It's a global sports entertainment technology company. If you have watched the Super Bowl and most importantly, bought any merchandise from any professional league, thank you very much. Please continue to do so. The challenge that I'm faced with right now is that we just came into finalizing our 2024 plans, and there is a business stakeholder that I cannot seem to please or satisfy. And I'm sure many of us have been in this situation before, and we just had an important exec level meeting where we were discussing the entire roadmap end to end, and this business stakeholder, he brought up the lack of investment, the lack of innovation happening in his area, where I thought we had aligned on a lot of what the investment was before. So there were a few surprises that came up that I just am struggling with what should I do next, because this is not the first time that this has happened with this particular business stakeholder. And I'm trying to see, and I'm obviously, I can't use the same tactics that I'd used in the past in terms of prepping and planning before, because I'd done the same things and it's not working. What is it that I should do as a next step? We did have a peaceful closure to the meeting, but I have as you can imagine, for a product roadmap discussion, a ton of follow-ups to do, specifically with this business stakeholder. I feel like I need new tools in terms of moving forward and gaining alignment with this business stakeholder. So
Okay.
that's my challenge.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shubha. So I want to look at our participants here. Who wants to raise their hand and restate the challenge in a simple manner that Shubha shared? All right. Shirag, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
You got it, Chase.
Perfect.
Well, hello, everyone. Yeah, so the problem that Shubha is facing is not very uncommon, right? There is a stakeholder that is important for the company. He's an executive, or he or she. And whatever roadmap that Shubha is presenting to the executives, he doesn't seem to be aligned with the priorities, right? He feels like his priorities are not being looked at. His priorities are not being accounted for. He feels lack of innovation in whatever business area he's leading. And so even though Shubha has tried aligning with him prior to the meetings, it doesn't seem to work out well, and he still brings up those challenges in the meeting with the broader stakeholders. So I'll pause there.
How did we do, Shubha?
Did great. Thank you so much, Chirag, for sharing it. You did much better than me.
Wonderful. So we're going to spend the next 5 minutes just asking questions. So let's stay away from offering any advice, suggestions, or ideas. We can ask what and how questions to deepen our understanding, as well as ask some questions that could potentially coach Shubha through this challenge. Who'd like to kick us off? All right, Coco?
Hey, I was curious, you mentioned that you've already gone through a number of tactics that you can't really use again. So in order for me to better understand what you've done so far, could you summarize some of those?
Absolutely. So, this has been happening for the last couple of years. So this isn't new. So the first default of when it happened for the first time is when I coached my team in turn to be able to help prep, and align with him and show the roadmap, have a meeting with his team discuss the roadmap in detail so they can see kind of end to end what the investments are. And also, I think, so that's one thing that I did in terms of coaching my team and prepping and what I thought was aligning his team on the details better. The second is, a lot of sometimes roadmap decisions, as you can empathize, it's sometimes driven by budget. So this is a VP of operations. I can only empathize how difficult his job is, but my budget is focused more on supporting some other teams from a marketing, technology, GenAI, improvements, etc. That's where the CFO's mandate is. And so just sticking with that in terms of kind of presenting and making sure he's aligned on the high level budgeting decisions is also something that I invested time in. So I think those were the two things. And I also, this time around, I also personally checked in with him. I said, hey, we're coming into this meeting. How are you feeling about it? What are some of the, I empathized and I shared that, in an ideal world, we would invest a lot in operations, but that's not the mandate that's actually coming from the CFO. And I thought we had nodded, but clearly I think I'm missing something. So those were the things that I did previously, Natalia. Does that help?
All right. Wonderful. Let's hear from G. Am I pronouncing your name correctly, G?
It sounds like Jeff, but Z is fine.
Okay, perfect. What questions do you have for Shubha?
Yeah, thank you, Shubha. You mentioned that you did have touch base with him this time. In the past, have you had more frequent kind of check-ins with the stakeholder? And the second question is, each year when you mentioned, right, do the yearly planning, for this particular year, do you know what are some of the KPIs that the VP of Operations is responsible for?
Yeah, it's a great two-part question. So I'll answer both of those questions. How is my regular touch base with him? We have a regular standing monthly one-on-one. About 70% of the time it does get honored. He does live in a different part of the country, so it's mostly through Zoom. So I do feel there is an opportunity maybe here to be a little bit more personal. But I have to be honest with you. I mean, like the mandate from the budget standpoint is to focus on some of the other growth areas. The operations is more of an efficiency area that I'm not being asked to kind of like focus on too. So if you say VP of marketing and the CMO, I have many more touch bases with them and their team where my team's budget is more invested in than possibly, this particular stakeholder. So that's one thing. And I think the second question, Jeff, I'm sorry, was it?
It's more, what do you know what are the KPIs or the OKRs that he's been, I guess, measured against?
I have to say not at a very detailed level. I know the top level KPIs that all of the VPs are aspiring towards, and we openly share and discuss and debate that. So do I know the second, third level of kind of like what the drivers are and how he's, one of the things that I do realize is that he has a team of like 1,000 people that he has to manage. 80% of them are seasonal, as you can imagine. And there's basically just a hodgepodge of tools, in terms of like legacy and digital transformation that we could potentially invest in. But, an easier, not easier, but a viable alternative is to be able to just throw some bodies at the problem too, which is what we're kind of doing. So we have KPIs in terms of on-time shipping, warehouse efficiency that I'm aware of. But second, third level drivers and knowing that there are viable alternate choices kind of drives the level of detail that that I know and I'm investing time in to know more. Does that answer your question, Jeff?
Yep. Good. Thank you.
So now let's dive into, Natalia, if you have one more question, and then let's dive into some ideas, solutions, and advice. We're kind of moving in a speed round here for the sake of time, but I sense that our group has chomping at the bit to dish out some advice for Shubha. So Natalia, take it away.
Yeah, final question. So do you know a little bit about her background? Like,
this person had to build an entire department within the company? Like how long they've been at the company? Did they used to have tons of support and suddenly they just don't anymore?
It's a great question. Thank you for asking. This person is a rock star, operations leader, comes from Amazon, is used to so much innovation and technology investment in operations. We're a retail commerce shop. We look at operations very differently from an efficiency standpoint. Most of our technology investments is in the front end experience and in our retail stores. So he is fundamentally, I think, a little frustrated in terms of the lack of investment across the board. It's a great question. But he's a rock star leader that comes from Amazon.
All right. What ideas, suggestions, and advice do we have for Shubha? Yeah, Chirag. Or Natalia and then Chirag.
Oh, no, sorry. I completely forgot to raise my hand. Yeah, I'll go really fast. So, I mean, I think, and this is from experience too, from working with like leaders that have been great, but just extremely hard to work with, is almost treating them almost like a product too, understanding how they communicate. Like when you do a product, you do research, right? Like you do your market research, like how much time you have. You do so much in research to do something in product, that you kind of treat them like that as well, like understand their communication style, their background, right? And try to kind of, because it's going to be hard, right? You're not going to be able to shift your priorities just because of the stakeholder. But I think just making them feel that they're just listening, but really connecting with them is going to help you a little bit. So that's something I would say.
Chirag,
I love the tackling people problem as product problems. Thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you for that framing.
Great. First of all, I'll say, and this is not something new because I know, Shubha, you've been a product leader for a long time. As product leaders, our job is not to please everybody, so don't lose your sleep over it. That's just going to be part of our job. The second thing I'll say is I'm sure you guys use some sort of prioritization framework, right? But I'll just put things on a priority. Again, at the end of the day, it's aligning with the corporate vision, right? What are the objectives that Fanatics have? And if it's growing P&L, if it's growing net retention, customer acquisition, whatever that may be, how do you tie those priorities with them? And his, as it comes to his operational priorities, right? How do they line up? And I will just bring that as I don't know if you guys do portfolio planning, right? But I'll just put all of it in paper and say, here are all the priorities that line up investment. And right now, let's say we are only investing 5% in operations. Let's put them in an executive table and share it with everybody and let's challenge it, right? This is how I made my decision because this is how I tie up these priorities. Let's openly challenge each other, right? But as long as we're aligned to those objectives, then he would understand it, even though he's not going to like it. So I'll keep it concise. I know we are bottom lining, so.
Kelly.
So I trust that you have used a lot of data and also facts and also processes to help drive the discussions. I think based on what I learned from you, the stakeholder still has something else in mind that is beyond the facts that you have laid on the table. So I think that's like a personal connection. I know Natalie has also highlighted. So some of the things that I would share is make sure that he feels that he's heard. So he has now heard your side where, yes, this is not the priority, this data, this is the roadmap, everything. Make sure that he's also given that time and maybe share that with him at your next one-on-one, monthly one-on-one. Say, this is the agenda. Like, I actually want you to talk. I'm not talking this time. I'm not coming here to tell you like what is now the decisions. I'm just let you talk. You tell me about your department, your constraint, your KPI, your everything, and that's the whole. And probably I would invite him to definitely attend that one too. And then try to also when you have big meetings, a lot of time when you come to prioritization, there's so many stakeholders. Actually, try to use that monthly one-on-one to get early buy-in from him, so he get a sneak preview from what you're gonna put on the table at the big meeting. So then he also, again, give him opportunity to voice his concern, which can actually help you to manage his reaction at that bigger formal meeting too. So you can be more proactive in his side, his perspective. And then a few more things I'll highlight or share is try to identify also circle of influence. So don't feel like it's all on you to influence him. Try to find who else share that work very closely with him, share maybe similar KPI with him that now is actually more supportive of the overall roadmap. Use the circle of influence to influence him. And then the last thing is, it's difficult, but it's not really your role, your job, roles, responsibility. But I try to sometimes take a further step to be part of now their solution. So I'm gonna say hard no to you on this roadmap, on the budget and everything. But how else can we still help you to figure out your work to still achieve your KPI? It's not gonna come from this budget. But how else? Is it stakeholders? Is it different processes? Is there thing that it wouldn't take the same pot of money or the same tech resource, the same group of engineer to still be part of the true partner, not just someone to tell him like a no, but help him to find the how.
Beautiful.
That's
And
awesome.
for
Great
this,
nuggets, yeah.
for the sake of time, Shubha, I'm going to have you share your takeaway here from our participants. Our other two folks with their hands up, I encourage you to drop your suggestions in the chat, as this can help Shubha continue to work through her blocker. But Shubha, what were your most salient takeaways here? What are you going to do based on this conversation?
This is super helpful. So the first thing I heard was that, continue doing what I'm doing. It's not like I'm doing something wrong and I have to completely pivot right now to change the entire portfolio or roadmap. Continue doing what I'm doing in terms of, strong foundations, reiterating the prioritization frameworks, all of the prep work that I'm doing. So continuing doing that. So I think that's very reassuring. So thank you for that. The two things that really stood out for me is one, treating a people problem like a product problem and showing more empathy in the situation all around. So I think that's an interesting takeaway for me. So he feels more listened to and heard. Maybe there's something there to dig deeper into. And the second one was really interesting. I do feel that meeting, that roadmap discussion meeting does put him in the defense a little bit. And so he feels a little reactive. So to your point of, Kelly, giving him more space to talk, leading him through the discussion in a way that he feels like he has the space, I think is really an excellent idea. And lastly, getting more help and support to be able to do this. I mean, he's heard the budget prioritization frameworks, everything from the CFO and the CEO. We were all part of those discussions. So maybe there is a message here that he's also intending for the CFO, for instance, that I could probably assist him with, but basically just asking him where I can help support him with an increased, technology investment could, I think, open up some good conversations. So great. I feel like I have a few suggestions to work on. I'm so excited. Thank you all so much for your feedback.
Beautiful. And thank you, Shubha, for bringing your challenge to the table. And I'm just can't wait to hear how things progress. Thank you all for joining us. This was just a taste of what takes place in some of our sidebar groups, and just goes to show the brilliant, what happens when brilliant minds come together to help solve challenges. I recognize we're a little bit over time. Asher from our team is going to be here to answer any additional folks' questions that you may have regarding Sidebar. And I thank you all for being here today. Asher, I'm going to spotlight you here, so you're front and center to answer any additional questions.
Thank you, Chase.
Yes.
I am here and happy to be spotlit. As Chase mentioned, I'll be sticking around, and if anyone has questions about anything in the program or membership, I will be here to answer them.
Okay, and if you have to drop, thank you again for joining us today. It was an awesome session. I was blown away by both our panelists and then the folks who volunteered who are not yet Sidebar members to share the awesome coaching and advice, and gave Shubha a lot of ideas in terms of the next step. If you are able to stay and you have a lot more questions, Asher's your man. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question or raise your hand.
Steven, saw you in the chat already. Floor is yours.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, thank you. This was great. And as someone who's a bit new to this, I'm here in Toronto, and really, really interesting. And I really enjoyed the conversation and hearing everybody. Can you talk a little bit about the membership, what the tiers of the memberships are, and so anything else that someone who's new to this, might be interested in knowing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. So Sidebar is an ongoing program that we think of in terms of an annual commitment. So Sidebar's $3,600 a year, and we very specifically don't tier our offering because we want to make sure that for those that are inside of the program in the community, that there isn't sort of stratification on what's offered. When you're among Sidebar, then it really is the full force of our team, the community, your group members themselves behind you. So it was very much a choice there. I think $3,600 will likely raise in the coming weeks to be in parity with sort of the chiefs and the YPOs and be kind of reflective of the full value. But at this point, it's really important that for those that decide to be with us, that, yeah, we're committing to you as well. Mark, I see you have a hand up.
Yes, thanks for staying today too. Hey,
I
had a question. So I hear a lot of like bigger company stuff, and I work for a smaller company. Well, it's like one small store of like 50 to 80, and then bigger, it's like 500. So with several different stores. So my question is like, how would Sidebar fit that kind of scenario also? More of a small business, small to medium business.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And in short, Sidebar is very versatile, right? We isolate the caliber of individuals, but we never want to segment on kind of size and scope of company. So your group match itself is going to be hyper focused on those that you can learn and grow from, really on these 6 to 12 month limiting factors. So it's people who are really fluent in your org size, your business model, really that don't need to be educated about the challenge set or the way that it shows up in this flavor. That being said, the entire community is available to each member. So when things do exist outside of that purview, it's really easy for those interactions. So although today's panelists were isolated to the bigger companies, we have everything from solopreneurs, which are teams of one, to people who are leading companies through the growth stage and kind of 0 to 1 and those first hires to 50 to 200 to 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 plus. So we do want to make sure that's clear in the group construct itself. But yeah, as long as it's past a certain bar, that's really what we're excited about. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let's see. I'm jumping in the chat here. Joe would like to know more about other activities, exercises, objectives that happen in the peer groups other than the problem-solving exercise. It's a really good question. So these groups they're focused on tactical value, right? Which is actually distinctly different than a lot of the other resourcing out there, where it's really about taking the theory and then it's sort of on you to put it in practice. It shows up in this specific acute challenge session. There are specific goal sessions, which are really making sure that the group knows and can triangulate off of what each member is really tracking towards. There's also topic-led discussions. So for any specific group, there are thematic discussions where, you can imagine that communications is sort of a theme that comes up across the board all the time. And it takes on different dimensions exactly where it is in a career or the org size. But, certain times there are just discussions based on what's coming up among all members. We can really go deep. We also have another style of event that we call a member spotlight. And for those, it's almost like a product review where someone really brings something that they're working on and the whole team can kind of break down all aspects of it in those 90 minutes. So there's a lot of different mechanisms, but it's always anchored on that tactical value. It's a great question. Anybody else? I hope I see the chat box. So we do not offer discounts, really because of the way the pricing is at right now. It's kind of artificially held back. and it will rise. So we don't offer discounts, but we do treat kind of B2B partnerships a little different. And if that is the root of the question, I'm happy to explore that further or connect it out afterwards. Tane, I'm excited to see your hand raised. Been a long time.
Hey, Asher. Quick question. How do you, I guess, like, is everyone that has $3,600 like eligible for this program, or is it kind of like you go through a fitting process of whether or not this program makes sense?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's actually no ability to just jump in and pay the $3,600. Every single Sidebar member is vetted and goes through the admissions process, which is typically between 1 and 2 interviews. It's a group discussion internally on the admissions team before that's extended. And yeah, it's really to make sure that the caliber is maintained, because that's sort of the single biggest way things can fall off the tracks is as soon as the quality of the membership waters down. Did that answer your question?
And just a quick follow-up question, Asher. Sorry. Like, of the folks that, like, I'd be curious. I think there's 700 folks I think you have in the program now. How many have you not accepted in this process?
Ooh,
through
that's a
this
good question.
calibration?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it's tough to pin an exact number because a lot of the filtration is done before somebody actually gets on the member interview itself. There's certain things in the structured data that give us a really clear signal if somebody's a good fit or it's a great fit at the moment. So for that, it's probably, I'd say it's probably 9 applicants not making it to the interview for every one that does. People are pretty qualified once they get on the interview itself. And for those, it's about 50-50 at this point.
That's great. No, it's good to know. Thank you.
Really good question. Joe, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a question with regards to the community. So I know you get paired into your own peer group, and I heard there was other peer groups that you kind of join in with naturally. But in terms of being in a group that's kind of specific to an industry, let's say, is there something like that where there's already communities formed around, you know, certain industries or topics, much like really poor example, but subreddits, I guess?
Great example, because I'm a Reddit super fan. So I appreciate that. Short answer is absolutely. You know, no matter who this aid is going to be, there's always going to be things that exist outside of the direct purview, right? And that's not to be something shied away from, something to celebrate it. So, you know, mechanisms to really lean into that are, there are these affinity groups, which are essentially subreddits and threads that are, you know, some are geographically focused, some are, you know, topic based, like, you know, wellness in the workplace and performance at a certain level. You know, a lot of them are vertical specific. You know, the product thread is just going off at the moment, and I swear I learn something from it every single time I log in, which is a lot. So yeah, it really is. I always like to think Sidebar is really this knowledge graph where the nodes are these small groups, but the lines that can be traversed are the context. So wherever there is that shared context, there's a forum that can show up for it.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. That was a really good question. Vic.
Hey, I had this question in chat where I asked, how often do you meet and how long are the sessions typically? Because based on the mock session that we just did, which was very helpful to see, right? If you deep dive into one person's problem, you'll probably be able to cover 1 or 2 in an hour. So, you know, if I have a question and if there's 8 of us, it could be a month or 2 before we could get to my question. So I wanted to understand that.
It's again, I feel like a broken record, but it's an excellent question. And you know, through quite a lot of reps on it and data points, you really can't go between below 20 minutes, right? And we found that 20-minute segments for these problem solving sessions are really precise. They allow things to not meander, but still let it go to the depth that you have clear action items afterwards. And you know, you can leave the call better at what you're going to show up for than you entered. So a core session would involve 3 of these, with typically 15 minutes on the front that are really the context build collectively since the last session together, and then 15 minutes that really outlines what's next. And you know, if it is a core session, right, the 2 points of triangulation to really allocate the time are what's the most urgent fire burning and who was the last person to share from the group. And it sounds reductive, right? Even as I say that out loud, it sounds like an oversimplification, but you know, I facilitated all of our groups for the first 18 months as a company, and between those two, things were never out of balance a single time. And you know, if things pop up between sessions, which I think is more likely than you not having the time, you know, we have the asynchronous loops built tightly in, so you always have access to this group of people and the whole community. And when these problems come up, people can answer it on the calls. People can answer it in the chat. The chat thread is historical, which is pretty unique. So, you know, at the end of the call, we're losing this Zoom thread, but we don't lose the one in Sidebar, and it builds on itself. So it's kind of always there. Like Sidebar's got to work when you're working. And it as was really well mentioned by Ida, like it's got to be there in real time as these problems occur. Chin, I can either stay, Chinmay, I can stay on afterwards, or I'll shoot my email in the chat right now. And I'm really happy to connect with anyone who wants to for a message. I'm less competent managing the Zoom chat these days because I'm mostly living on Sidebar, which is fun. Anybody else? Any more questions? Well, if there's nothing else, I'll stick around if anything pops up. I also dropped my email in the chat itself. Feel free to reach out to me, anything big or small. I'm really happy to answer, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous. And thank you everybody for joining. Oh, this has been a lot of fun. It's really exciting to kind of see everybody in this forum. So very much appreciated. And I'll stick around here if anybody has anything.